So I am very excited to get How Did They Do That Live started today with a guest speaker. Carolyn Sykora is with us. She's a Senior Director of ISTE Standards Programs, and she's going to be sharing out with us what is ISTE, what are the ISTE standards for students, and what does that mean to me as a teacher and my students in the classroom. So I'm very excited to introduce Carolyn. Welcome.
Matthew, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Really a pleasure to join you today. I'm gonna share my screen, and if you guys could just let me know if you see that. Are you seeing that? I can't see you guys, so I'm gonna count on Armando or Matthew to say yes.
Carolyn, we do not see your screen yet, your presentation.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I thought I had that fired up. Okay. Now, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. As Matthew said, I'm going to be talking about the ISTE standards today. I've been with ISTE for 15 years, have worked on the standards my entire time I've been here, developing standards, and we'll talk about the baggage that the word standards has, and we're going to step away from what you think that might mean. I have been able to do professional learning for helping teachers implement, been able to work with school, district, and state leaders to have the standards adopted. And then even have the opportunity to work with those in higher ed to prepare their graduates to be able to apply the standards. But I have to say my greatest pleasure is being able to talk to teachers that are new to the standards. And my wish, my hope is that this will be an opportunity to pique your curiosity and explore a little bit deeper. So with that, and also I also want to say, I hope I'm not giving anything away, Matthew, but I also understand that this session is kicking off a monthly How Did You Do That Live around the standards, which I'm super excited about.
It sure is. Yes.
Great. Okay, just really quickly about ISTE, and I do have one of my colleagues here, Heidi Ellis, who is the Senior Director of Education and Strategic Partnerships. So I want to just say a shout out to Heidi. ISTE has been around for 40 years, and we have always doubled and tripled down on a vision for how technology can transform teaching and learning. And, thinking back to, at least I'm probably a lot older than all of you, but when I think about what technology can do today, which was impossible when I was in public education myself. But ISTE is able to achieve this in these 4 areas. Professional learning, we have ISTE U, which is some online courses, including some standards courses, and then the ISTE certification, which is sort of the flagship professional learning, competency-based certification for using the educator standards. We have events, and if you've heard about ISTE before, you may have heard because we have a very, the biggest premier ed tech event in the US. It's our annual conference held in June. We bring together 25,000 of our closest friends when we can meet in person, and we're going to meet in person in New Orleans in June. We hope to see you there. We also have Creative Constructor Lab, which is a very hands-on, innovative workshop happening every October. And then we have a leadership exchange for leaders in K-12 education. In addition, we have community and membership, and this is the area that Heidi leads. And our community is a vibrant community of professional learning networks and lots of opportunities to engage. But the community is really about being able to ask questions with peers from around the world, get answer questions, share resources, and get support. And then lastly, we have publishing. ISTE has a big library of books, and we have 2 research journals that we publish. So today, I'm going to turn our attention to the class of 2034, thinking into the future. These are our kinders who just joined the classroom this year, and they're going to graduate in 2034. And even though we are thinking about what we have to do today to get the school year off the ground, we also, if we think about their future, what do we have to do to prepare them for their future? So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time describing what we anticipate part of their future is going to be before we jump into the standards. I don't know if any of you read or heard about Buckminster Fuller. He coined the term knowledge doubling curve. And basically it's because of science, data, and technology that the body of knowledge in the world has just accelerated. So we have more access to information than any time in the history of the human species. And this is an example in the medical field alone. Every 3 to 4 years, the medical knowledge doubles, which is phenomenal. A lot of our students are going to be also facing, headwinds from automation and artificial intelligence. And they say 25% of the workforce is facing it now, and that is going to grow. So what will the world of work look like when the class of 2034 graduates? And some of you may have seen or heard of this quote: we need to prepare students for jobs that don't yet exist. So what does that mean for today's students? Now, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what the future is going to actually look like, but I am confident that today's students have to learn to learn. Learning to learn. With facts at your fingertips, and with the ability, the requirement to be a lifelong learner, to build new skills, to upskill, to make connections, to be a good citizen. Learning to learn is something that we as educators have to devote our time to. And how can they learn with others in the classroom, but how do we learn? How do we also give them opportunities to learn on their own and that passion for learning? So the ISTE standards, they do focus on learning to learn and preparing students to adapt and to rapid and ongoing change. So we're going to dig into the standards a little bit, but I do want to point out, like I said at the beginning, that the word standards carries a lot of baggage. And I really hope that you'll have an open mind when we look at the standards, that that we're actually looking at what are the skills that they can use to learn with technology. So right now there's empowered learner, digital citizen, knowledge constructor, innovative designer, computational thinker, creative communicator, and global collaborator. So this is not your math or ELA standards. This is a whole different approach to standards. And maybe we should call them something else than standards. Maybe it's a guide to learning. So with that, I want to share a video with you. I'll check the volume when I do this.
'21st century learners out there. You know how we do it. Let's go. Yo, number one, I'm an empowered learner. I set goals and pursue them with fervor. My learning is up to me, it's not passive. My brain learns best when I am digitally proactive. Number two, I'm a digital citizen. I stay safe on all the sites that I'm visiting. I use technology to make a difference. With power comes responsibility. You digging it? I'm a knowledge constructor. Number three, I carefully select and evaluate what I read. Curate media also brilliantly, and I designer. That means I solve problems, major and minor. Start with empathy, ideate, then prototype. Test and iterate, that method is so nice. I'm a computational thinker. 5, improving any process that I can find. Writing algorithms and testing in beta. Analyzing to find the trends in the data. I'm a creative communicator, that's 6. Like I put this in a rap song to make it stick. I could use different media or tools like infographics to get my point through. 7, I'm a global collaborator. I might connect with students way over the equator. Digital tech makes the dream come true. Had a virtual field trip with a kid in Peru. That's 7 ways that I can be a lifelong learner in this 21st century. What kind of student do I want to be? It's my path, that's up to me. That's 7 ways that I can be a lifelong learner in this 21st century. What kind of student do I want to be? It's my path, that's up to me.
I'll pause there and go back to the presentation. So it's, I hope what you got out of that was that it was really, the standards are personas, is really doubling down on being that lifelong learner in the 21st century. And what kind of student, what kind of person do I want to be? And when you look at the standards, they really are those personas of what students can strive for. So let's dig in just a minute. I just grabbed this off of Twitter, and I thought it was really valuable to share. And this is somebody who's has used the standards, and she said, I used to think that they were something you do, and now I think they're more of a framework for how to incorporate deeper learning with students. And I want to point out that deeper learning with students, because we're going to take a look at them in just a minute. And I want you to be thinking about looking at the standards as how they work to deepen learning. They're not standalone in a computer lab. It's really how they can be used to deepen learning in content areas. So I think either Heidi or Armando had sent the link out. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go to the ISTE Standards for Students page. And what I would like to do is I'm going to just let you know I'm going to talk through the standards a little bit, but I'd like for you to open them up too, because I'm going to have you read a couple of the statements and then share out some of your thoughts on that. So if we're good to go, I'm going to start with the student standards. Like we said, there's empowered learner, digital citizen, knowledge constructor, etc. But if you open this page, I want to talk a little bit about the taxonomy of the standards. So you have the name, empowered learner. You have, this is the standard statement, and these A, B, C, Ds are the actual performance indicators. So for empowered learner, the standard statement is students leverage technology to take an active role in choosing, achieving, and demonstrating competency in their learning goals informed by the learning sciences. So that's sort of the umbrella that provides context for the rest of the performance indicators. So let's look at this first one. Students articulate and set personal learning goals, develop strategies leveraging technology to achieve them, and reflect on the learning process itself to improve learning outcomes. Or you have 1B, students build networks and customize their learning environments in ways that support the learning process. Well, what ISTE did for all of these, and you may notice it if you're on this page, is we did these rollovers, and the rollovers are really intended for people new to the standard, so they can understand, what did ISTE mean by those phrases? So we provide either a definition of term or a definition by example. So for example, build networks. We define it as enrich learning by making online connections with other learners and experts for personal or academic interests. For example, via social media, connecting through email, video conferencing, or digital pen pals, etc. The other thing to notice on our website is there are little videos that are just like less than 2-minute videos that sort of show what the standards look like in the classroom. On the resources page that was sent out, it also has a link to the playlist, the standards playlist. So what I'd like to do, you should have this, and it looks like great, a bunch of you are in it. If you go to the Standards for Student page, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. I'd love for each person to check out just one of the standards. What is of interest to you? Maybe it's knowledge constructor. And I'd like for you to read the standard statement, read the indicators, and put in the chat what surprised you as you read those. So with that, I'm going to have some music, and you'll have a couple of minutes to choose a standard, read through it, and then add your comments about what surprised you in the chat. Let's stop here and go back to the chat and say, okay, let me go into the Q&A. So there we go. Got some published. So I see from somebody that's a lot of information, especially in 2 minutes. So I totally understand it. One of the things that you'll have an opportunity to do is follow up with that and really look at the standards more closely when you have a little bit more time. So let me present. I just want to get a confirmation verbally from Matthew that you can see my screen now.
Hi, Carolyn. No, we cannot.
Oh my goodness.
We see the wonderful Carolyn right now, but not your screen.
Okay, I keep forgetting that okay, let's try this again. Okay. Anytime I jump back and forth, I seem to lose me. How's
yes,
that?
we can see it now. We can,
okay.
Yep, totally.
Great. Okay, so I do want to just summarize some of the things that I hope you did see or recognize when you looked at the standards, that they focus on learning, not the tools. So you won't see Microsoft Teams, you won't see Google, you won't see Flipgrid, you won't see Seesaw, you won't see any of that. It's really about how do we move the learning forward. 2, as I said before, they work hand in glove with content standards. So if you teach math or you teach ELA or science or PE or music, they can work with those standards. And then lastly, they're used with students of all ages. So I'm sure if you took a look at them, you may have thought, oh my goodness, I teach, 7-year-olds. How are they ever going to meet these? Well, I do want to let you know one of the resources on that document that was shared out is that we have prepared age band articulation. So what does it look like at the early elementary, middle school, with the standards themselves really representing what it looks like for high schoolers and when they graduate. So I encourage you, take a look at the age band articulations of the grades that you teach, and then you can look at it through that lens as well. So what do the standards look like in the classroom? That is the age-old question, because there's so many ways to implement. There's not just one way. But what I'd like to do is take a look at 2 videos of teachers that are integrating it. The first video actually comes from our collection of videos that you can find online. And then the second one, it was actually made by a couple of teachers from ELA and science that collaborated. But let's look at the first one. This is a teacher, Jamie Kearns from Vallejo district, just north of you guys. And I was down there. She teaches middle school math and science. And we were able to capture this video of her, in this case, looking in the Empowered Learner Indicator 1C and really focusing on feedback to improve practice. So let me.
Students use technology to seek feedback that informs and improves their practice and to demonstrate their learning in a variety of ways.
We're studying slope-intercept form today, and we're using a game to help formulate that concept better. They have already learned how to write lines, but they're practicing it more, and they were seeing how to change the slope and the y-intercept, how that affects this line going through so they could safely land a plane. You know, you can't have too much error and something like that. So again, having them be precise, again, another mathematical practice standard. So I think it gives them immediate feedback as they're doing it, because they see when they press submit, they can see the line and they can see with the colors if they got it and it was green, and if they didn't, it was red.
If you get it wrong, it'll say reset, and then it'll reset you, and then you can try again. For me, it reassures me that I can make a number of mistakes and I'll still learn. We have a visual representation and we can experiment with other kids in the class, which will also help develop our knowledge with slopes.
Whereas for me, it was giving me feedback. It documented all their responses from the times before with everyone else's, because I could see like, okay, this one, she didn't get this one right, or she got that one right, or I can come and then I can group them together. And so I can give them feedback wherever they're at.
I'm going to try to get out of here without going off and not sharing. I don't know if you could hear that. You can see it on the 1C on the site, but what she was putting into practice with her math students was she was using a math program called Desmos to be able to allow her students to do their math problems, but also if they weren't accurately doing the calculations right, that they would get automatic feedback from the program. But what made this even more powerful for her as an educator is that she could see all of her students where they were at, what kind of responses that they had. So there was an opportunity for her to, you know, that was the check for understanding. She could go provide help for students that need a little bit more help. And for those that were on track, she could keep them moving along. So that is one example in middle school math. The second example I want to share with you is from Virginia Beach City Public Schools. And this was a collaboration from between two fourth grade teachers. And they collaborated on a problem-based learning activity. So let me just set this up a little bit. Virginia Beach is right on Chesapeake Bay. And for a long time, there had been declining populations of oysters. And there was a lot of work being done, you know, in communities to try to increase the oyster population. And one of the things that researchers had found is that if they build these sort of, they call them oyster castles, but they're really sort of fabricated reefs that the larvae or the spat could stay on in those oyster castles until they got older, and it was a way for them to increase their population. So before I show you the video, I want to let you know, I wanted to show you some of their learning goals that they were really trying to achieve. And all these things, describing interrelationships, analyzing data, you know, evaluating data and their own research to propose viable locations for oyster castles. And then they presented their findings in an oral presentation. So this is totally an embedding and integration of technology and ISTE standards into this example. So with that, I'm going to show the third and the last video. out there because the last part is the presentation day, but it was really, you know, seeing the kids engaged. They were engaged in the project. They were collaborating with each other. This was a real world authentic problem that affected their community. And these teachers put this together for their students. So, you know, the 3 teachers that I just profiled their projects for, they are, you know, have done this work for a long, long time. But it's not something where you can't start with where you are. We want people to grow, and we are lifelong learners. I've been doing this for a long time, and I still continue to learn. So really want to let you know is that you can start with the ISTE standards from wherever you are. And I want to talk a little bit about the 10-step ISTE Standards Challenge, how you can get started. I use the phrase PedTech, and I thought I had just invented it. And I thought, yeah, that really explains what the standards are, pedagogy with technology. And then I looked it up on Twitter and found out there already was a hashtag. So I was a little disappointed, but really excited that I came to that, you know, and somebody else is thinking about that too. So let's talk about the 10 steps. 1, collaborate with others to explore and unpack the student standards. You've got the standards online, you've got the videos, you've got the rollovers, but the key part of this is to collaborate. That's part of the educator standards. It's like collaborating with others and learning with others to do this. Collaborate with your instructional technology team to identify the tools, tutorials, content, and resources that are available to you. You may not know what Matthew and Alexandra or Armando can provide to support you exploring the standards and with technology. 3, so this is a really important one. Identify a few activities to redesign. So you don't need to bite off more than you can chew, but you know in your school year what are some activities that either students struggle with and you want to sort of redesign it to see if there's a way to get that breakthrough learning, or it might be something that you know it's like, wow, I could really think about using technology to increase engagement or make it more real world learning. So identify a few. 3, think about how leveraging technology can improve learning. So I'm with ISTE, I direct the standards, and I would be the first one to say, ISTE is not about technology all the time, everywhere. It is really focused on purposeful, meaningful, and strategic use of technology that can really, you know, have high impact learning. 5, identify the ISTE standards that may be addressed. So look at those indicators and say, just like when you're doing your lesson planning, are there some of those concepts that could be that students get to practice in the classroom because you designed it that way. 6, design with specific tools or resources to use for learning goals. Again, it gets doubling down when you're getting to the design phase, really thinking about what does that tool do in terms of meeting the students' learning goals. 5, facilitate with students and get their feedback. Was this experience different than they've had? What did they like about it? What did they not like about it? Reflect on what worked and what didn't. Just like I modeled earlier today, that I have tech problems too, and I just, you know, fix it in the moment and move on and not think about it too much. So reflect on what worked, what didn't work, seek support from others, and always keep learning and trying. There is ISTEs at the ready to support you in your journey. Like I mentioned, we have ISTE U, which are the online courses, ISTE certification for those of you that are ready to really demonstrate your confidence and competence in ISTE standards. ISTE Connect as part of the membership, and ISTE books. So with that, Heidi and I just want to say thank you so much for listening today and learning a little bit more about the standards, and I hope you'll take us up on the ISTE Standards Challenge.